Introduction. Friends, if you are excited to watch the upcoming sci-fi adventure Retro 2025 in English, then make sure you like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more fun updates. In today's video, we're going to talk all about Retro 2025. What this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the fascinating behind-the-scenes facts you probably didn't know. I'm going to tell you everything. On which OTT platform or satellite channel you'll be able to officially watch Retro, plus all the details about its technical team, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, and box office expectations. We'll also explore the storyline of Retro, give you a short review of the plot, and break down the facts about the movie's star cast, the actors' performances, and which actor is playing which character. That's why I recommend you watch this video till the end. You won't want to miss any of the exciting details. So, let's jump in and start the video. Plot and narrative. Alright friends, let's dive deep into the plot and narrative of Retro 2025. Buckle up, because this movie isn't your average point A to point B journey. The story kicks off in a near-future world where retro technology, think cassette tapes, arcade machines, vinyl records, old-school analog gadgets, has mysteriously become the most valuable currency. Yes, you heard that right. In a world obsessed with progress, the past has become the future. Our main character, a scrappy underdog named Max, isn't your typical hero. He's a retro tech scavenger, darting through underground markets, shady warehouses, and neon-lit back alleys to hunt down rare pieces of tech that most people threw away decades ago. But here's where things get interesting. The timeline doesn't flow neatly. Instead of following a straight path, the movie throws us back and forth between Max's present-day heists and flashbacks to his childhood, when his father, a famous inventor, vanished under mysterious circumstances. The film plays with memory, dreams, and even glitched perspectives where reality seems to warp, like you're watching a scratched VHS tape or a corrupted video file. It's as if the movie itself is stitched together from old fragments, making you constantly question what's real and what's just a nostalgic mirage. A major turning point hits when Max uncovers a hidden message in an old video game cartridge, leading him on a wild chase to unlock a massive conspiracy. It turns out the retro tech craze isn't just about nostalgia. Buried inside these old devices is a powerful code capable of rewriting the digital fabric of the world. Suddenly, Max isn't just flipping gadgets for cash. He's the key to a global battle between corporate giants and rogue underground hackers, all fighting over control of this lost technology. The conflict spiral. Max faces betrayal by a close friend, a tense romance with a rival scavenger, and high-stakes chases that blend gritty cyberpunk action with emotional moments of reflection. One particularly unforgettable scene traps Max inside a virtual world designed from his childhood memories, forcing him to confront unresolved grief over his father's disappearance. The emotional impact hits hard. It's not just about tech or rebellion, it's about holding on to the parts of ourselves we've buried or forgotten in the rush toward the future. As the narrative unfolds, you never quite feel safe or settled. Just when you think you've figured out where things are heading, the film throws a curveball. A time jump, a perspective shift, a glitch in the narrative. Suddenly, you're looking at the same moment from another character's eyes or realizing that what you thought was the past is actually the future. The story plays like a mixtape, fast, slow, unexpected, and layered with meaning. In short, Retro 2025 doesn't just tell a story, it remixes it. It's a wild, clever, and emotionally charged ride that keeps you hooked. Not because it follows familiar beats, but because it dares to break them apart and reassemble them in a way that feels both fresh and deeply human. Want me to break down the key characters or the visual style next? Character development. Alright, let's jump right into the characters of Retro 2025. Because this isn't just some action-packed, tech-fueled adventure. Oh no, this movie packs real, living, breathing characters who'll get under your skin and stay there. Let's start with Max, our scrappy protagonist. At first glance, Max feels like the classic underdog, a smart-talking, fast-moving scavenger scraping by in a neon-drenched world obsessed with the past. But here's the twist. Max isn't just chasing old tech for money. Deep down, he's searching for connection. His father's mysterious disappearance years ago left a hole he's never filled, and his obsession with retro gadgets isn't just professional, it's personal. Every joystick, every dusty vinyl, every glitchy arcade screen is a chance, however slim, to reconnect with what was lost. You watch Max wrestle between his tough exterior and the lonely, grieving kid still buried inside. His growth isn't just about beating the bad guys or winning the game, it's about learning how to face his own past without losing himself. Then there's Rin, Max's rival turned ally, a fierce and sharp-witted scavenger who plays by her own rules. Rin brings a completely different energy. She's confident, focused, and not here to play nostalgia games. But what makes her stand out is the way she challenges Max, forcing him to question his motivations. Is he doing this for justice, revenge, or something even more selfish? Over time, Rin's layers peel back too, revealing someone carrying her own burdens, a family she's trying to protect, a past she's running from. Their relationship starts off full of tension and banter, but it gradually evolves into one of mutual respect, trust, and maybe even a little romance. Though the film never leans too hard into the cliché. Let's not forget the broker, the slick, shadowy figure who runs the underground retro tech black market. At first, the broker seems like your standard puppet master, pulling strings from the shadows. But halfway through, the film hits you with a surprise. The broker has ties to Max's father, and his motivations aren't just about profit. They're about control, fear, and a desperate attempt to rewrite his own failures. He's not just a villain. He's a reflection of what Max could become if he lets ambition and obsession consume him. There's also Juno, Max's childhood friend and hacker genius, who injects humor, heart, and a sense of loyalty into the group. Juno starts out as comic relief, cracking jokes, fixing broken tech with duct tape and chewing gum, but by the end he delivers some of the film's most emotionally charged moments. Watching him transform from the goofy sidekick to a courageous fighter willing to sacrifice for his friends hits harder than you expect. What's really fun is how these character arcs weave together. Everyone is on their own journey, but their paths intersect and collide in ways that shape the story's emotional core. Motivations clash. Max's need for personal closure, Rin's need for survival, the broker's hunger for control, Juno's loyalty to his friends. Relationships shift. Allies become enemies, enemies become allies, and every twist reshapes the emotional landscape. By the time you're deep into the second half of the film, you're not just rooting for Max to win some big showdown or save the world. You're rooting for him to grow, to break free of his grief, to let people in, to become something more than just a scavenger scraping by. And that, friends, is what makes the character development in Retro 2025 so compelling. It's messy, surprising, and most of all human. Performances. Alright, let's talk about the performances in Retro 2025, because trust me, this is where the movie really starts to shine. First up, we've got the lead actor playing Max, and wow, they carry this role with raw intensity. From the first scene, you can feel the restless energy pouring off Max. The quick wit, the twitchy nerves, the deep sadness hiding just behind the cocky grin. But here's the fun part. The actor doesn't just play Max as a one-note action hero. No. You watch Max crack jokes and smooth talk his way out of danger, sure, but you also see the quieter moments. The haunted look when he finds something that reminds him of his father, the flicker of doubt when he questions if he's doing the right thing. It's in the small moments, the flick of the eyes, the hesitation in the voice, where the performance elevates beyond just cool guy swagger. Then we have Rin, played by an actress who absolutely steals every scene she's in. Rin is sharp, fierce, and carries herself with this magnetic confidence. And the actress brings such precision to the role that even when Rin is silent, you can feel the weight of her presence. But the real magic is how she balances toughness with vulnerability. There's one standout scene where Rin opens up about her past, and it hits like a punch to the gut, not because it's dramatic or over the top, but because the actress underplays it, making the emotion feel raw and real. Suddenly, this tough-as-nails scavenger feels human, and you understand why Max is drawn to her. Let's not forget the broker, played by an actor who oozes charm and menace in equal measure. This character could have easily been a cartoonish villain, but the performance adds subtlety. A sly smile here, a moment of hesitation there, a flash of regret buried beneath all the scheming. There's a delicious tension in every scene with the broker. You're constantly asking, is this guy about to betray someone or save them? That ambiguity makes the character unpredictable and unforgettable. And then there's Juno, Max's hacker friend, brought to life by a performer who knows exactly how to deliver the laughs without ever turning into pure comic relief. Sure, Juno cracks jokes and lightens the mood, but the actor sneaks in little beats of nervous energy, loyalty, and even quiet bravery that add emotional depth. One standout moment is when Juno steps up to face danger head-on. No punchlines, no bravado, just genuine courage, and the actor sells it beautifully, making you cheer for this underdog. What really makes the performances in Retro 2025 special is how the cast works together. There's real chemistry between Max and Rin, tension and intrigue between Max and the broker, and genuine warmth between Max and Juno. These dynamics don't just make the plot move forward, they make you care. You want to see these characters succeed or fail, You believe their struggles and you feel their emotional stakes. Even the supporting cast delivers memorable turns. From the underground tech dealers to the corporate henchmen, every role feels fully inhabited. No one is phoning it in here, even the smallest roles add texture to the world. In short, the performances turn retro 2025 from a cool sci-fi concept into something alive and emotionally gripping. You're not just watching a story about tech battles and conspiracies, you're watching real people fight, connect, fall apart, and try to put themselves back together. And that, friends, is where the movie's heart truly beats. Direction. Alright, let's pull back the curtain and talk about the direction of Retro 2025. Because let me tell you, the director isn't just steering the ship here, they're rewriting the sailing manual. From the very first frame, you can feel the director's fingerprints all over the tone and mood. This isn't a cold, sterile sci-fi world with nothing but chrome and code. No, the director fills the movie with texture. Flickering neon lights, rain-slicked alleyways, grimy retro tech stacked in forgotten corners, and flashes of old-school nostalgia tucked inside futuristic chaos. It's a world that feels lived in, worn down, and buzzing with life. You're not just watching a setting, you're stepping right into it. And that's the director's gift, creating atmosphere so thick you can practically smell the dust on the old arcade machines. Now let's talk pacing. Does this movie rush through its story? Not a chance. But does it drag? Nope, not that either. The director plays with rhythm like a DJ spinning a setlist. There are slow, tense moments where the camera lingers on a character's face, letting the emotion simmer, and then bang, the movie flips into a kinetic, high-energy chase through city streets, jump cuts slicing through the action like a knife. You're constantly being pulled between tension and release, calm and chaos, reflection and explosion. It's that careful push and pull that keeps you locked in, never quite sure when to catch your breath. One of the director's coolest moves? The stylistic flourishes that pepper the film. You'll see glitchy screen effects that make you feel like the movie itself is breaking down. Flashbacks are shot on grainy film stock or framed like old home videos, blurring the line between past and present. There's even a daring sequence where the aspect ratio shifts mid-scene, narrowing the frame to trap the characters. You feel the claustrophobia as the visual space tightens around them. These choices don't just look cool, they amplify the storytelling, making the emotional beats hit harder. And let's not skip over the shot composition. The director knows exactly when to go big and when to go intimate. Wide shots capture the sprawling city skyline, pulsing with neon and life, while tight close-ups zero in on Max's twitching fingers, Rin's clenched jaw, or the broker's sly smile. Every frame is crafted with intention, guiding your eye to what matters most, whether it's the grand scale of the world or the smallest flicker of emotion on a character's face. What's really exciting is how the director balances narrative vision with raw energy. The story is layered and non-linear, full of memory jumps and shifting perspectives, and the director embraces that complexity rather than smoothing it out. Instead of hand-holding the audience, the film invites you to lean in, pay attention, and piece things together. That's a risky move, but under this director's hand it pays off, because you never feel lost, just challenged and intrigued. In short, the director isn't just telling a story, they're creating an experience. Retro 2025 feels like a wild ride through a world that's both futuristic and nostalgic, chaotic and intimate, fast-paced and emotionally grounded. It's the director's sharp eye, bold choices, and relentless commitment to mood and tone that make every scene crackle with life. Cinematography. Alright, buckle in, we're diving straight into the cinematography of Retro 2025, and oh boy, this is where the film becomes a visual playground. From the opening scene, the camera grabs you and doesn't let go. You're plunged into a world dripping with atmosphere. Narrow alleys bathed in pulsing neon, towering skyscrapers lit by giant holographic ads, tiny workshops cluttered with flickering monitors and dusty cassette tapes. The cinematographer makes sure every shot feels like a visual feast, combining high-tech gloss with retro grit. It's not just about showing off cool designs, it's about creating a world you can feel. Let's talk camera angles. The film loves to play with perspective. When Max is on the run, the camera chases him in tight, shaky handheld shots, pulling you right into the action, making every corner turn feel like a near miss. But when the movie shifts into more reflective moments, like Max sitting alone in a neon-lit room, staring at his father's old gadgets, the shots open up, using wide frames and stillness to let the emotion breathe. The constant shift between frenetic movement and lingering calm keeps you on edge, and it's all about how the camera chooses to tell the story. The lighting is pure mood. You've got deep shadows cut with sharp beams of colored light, creating a noirish, cyberpunk atmosphere that makes even the quietest moments crackle with tension. Watch how characters step in and out of the light. Sometimes their faces are half lit, half hidden, hinting at secrets and divided loyalties. There are moments when the lighting goes bold and experimental too. Flickering reds during moments of danger, cold blues in scenes of grief, warm golds in rare, tender moments. The cinematography doesn't just set the mood, it shapes how you feel about each scene. And let's not skip over the framing. The cinematographer knows exactly how to trap characters inside their world. Framing Max between rows of towering tech or shooting Rin through cracked glass and layered reflections so you're constantly aware of how fractured and boxed in their lives are. One standout moment? A brilliantly composed overhead shot of Max and Juno running through a maze-like underground market. The camera pulling up so high you see them as tiny figures darting through a giant, chaotic circuit board of human life. It's the kind of shot that makes you stop and think, wow, that's gorgeous, but it's not just beauty for beauty's sake. It tells you something about the character's place in this massive, overwhelming world. The cinematography also plays tricks on your sense of time and space. Flashbacks are shot on grainier, dreamlike film stock, making them feel slippery and hazy, like half-remembered memories. Action scenes sometimes cut to slow motion just for a heartbeat, stretching out the tension before snapping back into full-speed chaos. There's a particularly striking scene where the camera orbits Max in a dizzying 360-degree spin, glitching and distorting the image as if the film itself is breaking apart, mirroring Max's own unraveling mental state. And yes, there are moments of pure visual poetry. A quiet shot of rain falling in slow motion on an old cassette deck. Neon reflections dancing across wet pavement as Max and Rin share a tense conversation. Juno's face illuminated only by the flicker of a vintage screen as he decodes a crucial message. These aren't just cool visuals, they're emotional anchors, giving the audience tiny moments of stillness and wonder in the middle of all the chaos. In Retro 2025, the cinematography doesn't just serve the story, it's a character in its own right, shaping mood, tension, beauty, and meaning in every frame. Editing and pacing. Alright, let's crack open the editing room of Retro 2025 and see how this film's heartbeat is stitched together, because honestly the editing here is like a secret superpower hiding in plain sight. From the very first cut, you can tell the editor isn't just piecing together scenes. They're sculpting the film's rhythm like a musician layering beats. The opening sequence? Oh, it's a rush, fast cuts, rapid-fire flashes of cityscapes, close-ups of tech gizmos sparking to life, and jumpy little snippets of dialogue that throw you headfirst into the chaos. The editing here feels like a pulse, sharp, relentless, keeping your adrenaline high as you scramble to keep up with Max and Rin diving into this neon-drenched world. But here's where it gets really clever. The editor knows when to slam on the brakes. Just when you think the movie is going to sprint forward non-stop, it pulls back. Suddenly, you're in a quiet, drawn-out scene where the cuts slow down, letting you sit with the characters as they process grief, regret, or fear. A long pause on Max's face, a slow pan across Rin's battered hands. The editing stretches time, letting you feel the emotional weight. It's that balance between high-octane pacing and deliberate stillness that keeps the movie emotionally alive. Transitions between scenes? Smooth as butter, but not in a bland, invisible way. The editor plays with match cuts, where one image flows perfectly into the next. A spinning vinyl record dissolves into a drone shot spiraling over the city. The flicker of a glitching screen morphs into the glow of a city billboard. These aren't just flashy tricks. They create a seamless flow that ties the film's visual language together, making everything feel interconnected and intentional. And let's talk montages, because Retro 2025 serves up some killer ones. You get tightly edited sequences where Juno hacks through digital firewalls while Max and Rin dodge real-world threats, all set to pounding synth music, with the cuts snapping perfectly to the beat. It's like watching an action symphony. Tension rises, stakes escalate, and before you know it, you're clenched on the edge of your seat, breathless from the sheer momentum. But here's where the pacing gets really interesting. The film knows when to make you wait. There are moments where the story deliberately lingers, drawing out the tension until you're practically begging for something to break the silence. A conversation stretches just a little too long, a shot holds on an empty street just a little too quietly, and then boom, the edit slams you into the next burst of action. That careful control of tempo creates a roller coaster rhythm that makes the emotional highs and lows hit even harder. Now, is it all perfect? Well, there are moments when the editing leans into sensory overload, quick cuts, glitch effects, jumpy perspectives that can leave you feeling a little dizzy. But here's the thing, that's on purpose. The editor wants you to feel the chaos Max is living in, the scrambled signals and fragmented memories. It's not just about clean storytelling. It's about making you experience the mental noise right alongside the characters. So yes, the editing and pacing are more than just technical work. They shape the film's emotional core, its tension, its drive, and its mood. Retro 2025 isn't just a movie you watch. Thanks to the razor-sharp editing, it's a movie you feel in your gut, racing and slowing, pounding and pausing, pulling you through every twist and turn with breathless precision. Soundtrack and score. Let's plug in the headphones and crank up the soundtrack of Retro 2025, because trust me, the music here isn't just background noise, it's practically a character in the film, breathing life, tension, and heart into every single scene. From the first moment the synths kick in, you know you're in for something special. This isn't just some generic futuristic hum. The score is pulsing, textured, and soaked in retro flair. Think deep, throbbing bass lines, shimmering electronic arpeggios, and occasional drops into distorted, analog weirdness that makes you feel like you're trapped inside an old machine. The composer clearly understood the assignment. Create a sound world that mirrors the film's collision of past and future, where nostalgia bleeds into cutting-edge tension. One of the coolest things? The recurring motifs sprinkled throughout the score. Every time Max faces a key emotional moment, a memory of his father, a quiet moment with Rin, a near breakdown under pressure, a specific melodic line creeps back in, like an old song you can't quite shake. It's subtle but incredibly effective, anchoring Max's journey with a kind of musical fingerprint that follows him through the highs and lows. But it's not all synthwave and mood. There are moments when the soundtrack switches gears, pulling in rawer, grittier sounds. Think industrial clanks, metallic echoes, and glitchy rhythms that underscore the more dangerous, chaotic parts of the story. When Max and Juno hack into systems or dodge enemies in tight back alleys, the music ratchets up the tension with rapid, pulsing beats that make your chest tighten. It's like the score is holding your heart hostage, matching the character's panic beat for beat. And oh, the expert use of silence, because sometimes the boldest musical choice is knowing when not to play. There's a pivotal scene where Max stares across a rooftop at the city, weighing a massive decision, and the soundtrack cuts out entirely. No hum, no pulse, no melody. Just the sound of distant traffic and wind. That moment of silence makes the tension explode because you're suddenly hyper-aware of every breath, every movement, every risk about to unfold. When the music crashes back in, oh, it hits like a wave. What's impressive is how seamlessly the soundtrack blends with the rest of the film. It never feels like it's fighting for attention or overpowering the dialogue. Instead, it threads itself into the emotional fabric of each scene, heightening mood without drowning out the human moments. When the story slows down for a tender exchange or a gut-wrenching reveal, the music softens too. Delicate piano notes, airy synth pads, sparse textures that give the characters space to breathe. And then there's the needle drops, carefully chosen songs, some vintage, some modern remixes, that pop up in key scenes, giving the film a jolt of personality. Picture Max and Rin riding a beat-up hover bike through a neon-lit tunnel while a reworked 80s anthem blares on the soundtrack. You're not just watching cool visuals, you're feeling the vibe, the rebellion, the thrill. Those musical choices turn stylish moments into unforgettable ones. In Retro 2025, the soundtrack and score aren't just dressing on top of the story, they're the emotional current pulling you through, amplifying joy, fear, heartbreak, and triumph with every note. Themes and messages. Alright, let's peel back the flashy neon layers of Retro 2025 and dig into the heart and brain of this film. Because behind all the synth beats, chase scenes, and futuristic cityscapes, this story is packed with themes that hit hard if you're paying attention. At its core, Retro 2025 is a film about memory and identity. Max isn't just running from corrupt corporations or hacking through digital firewalls. He's on a desperate search for who he really is. The movie keeps circling this idea that we are more than the data stored about us, more than the technology we're plugged into. Max's journey is all about reclaiming his past, not from a hard drive or a server, but from his own fragmented, fading memories. And the kicker? The film constantly asks, if you change your memories, do you change yourself? That's a question that lingers long after the credits roll. Then there's the theme of connection versus isolation. In a world packed with constant streams of data, endless connectivity, and people hooked into virtual spaces, Retro 2025 keeps coming back to one brutal truth. Real human connection is becoming rare. You see it in Max's tentative, fragile bond with Rin. Two people trying to figure out if they can trust each other in a world where betrayal hides behind every message and every shared file. You see it in Juno, glued to his screens, slowly realizing that no amount of digital brilliance can replace actual human presence. The film doesn't beat you over the head with this theme. It shows it through moments of loneliness, mistrust, and the aching hunger for something real. Another huge idea floating through Retro 2025 is the tension between progress and nostalgia. This isn't just a futuristic thriller, it's a story obsessed with the past. Old gadgets, forgotten songs, crumbling buildings filled with analog tech. The film keeps reminding you that in the rush toward advancement, something vital is always left behind. Max's obsession with his father's old cassette deck isn't just a quirky detail. It's symbolic of his refusal to let go of a world that once felt more authentic. The question the film subtly raises is, does progress always mean improvement? Or are we losing pieces of ourselves along the way? And let's not forget the ethics of technology, a theme that pulses through every plot twist and character choice. The film doesn't serve up easy answers, but it constantly nudges the audience to think. How much control over our lives are we willing to give up in exchange for convenience or power? Who really owns the information that defines us? Can technology liberate us, or will it always end up enslaving us to some faceless authority? These aren't just background ideas. They're baked into the stakes of every major decision Max and his crew face. But here's what makes Retro 2025 stick. The themes never feel like they're sitting in a lecture hall. They're woven into the action, the relationships, the quiet beats between explosions and heists. You're not watching characters stand around debating philosophy, you're watching them live through choices that carry deep emotional and moral weight. And maybe the most surprising message tucked into all this neon chaos? Hope. For all the dark alleys, shadowy betrayals, and grim futures, Retro 2025 refuses to let go of the idea that individuals can change their fate, that human bonds can still cut through the noise, that even in the most wired, controlled, manipulated world, there's still room for rebellion, and for love. Visual effects and CGI. Alright, buckle up because Retro 2025 is a visual playground, and the VFX team clearly went all out making sure you don't just watch this world, you fall headfirst into it. From the opening shot, you're hit with a landscape that's bursting with digital artistry. Picture neon-drenched skyscrapers towering over crumbling old neighborhoods, holographic ads flickering above rusted-out cars, drones zipping past street vendors selling outdated tech relics. The CGI here doesn't just decorate the world, it builds it. You get the sense that every corner of this universe has been crafted with care, layering gritty textures and high-tech sparkle to create a setting that feels both futuristic and worn out, a place on the edge of collapse but still pulsing with life. What's impressive is how seamlessly the effects blend into the environment. You know those movies where the CGI sticks out like a sore thumb, making you feel like you're watching a video game cutscene instead of a real story? Not here. Whether it's the giant corporate towers glowing with digital armor or the tiny blinking chips embedded under a character's skin, the effects don't scream, "Look at me." They pull you in quietly, helping you believe this world is real without pulling you out of the moment. The holograms and interface graphics deserve a special shout-out. Every time Max and Juno pull up a digital map, crack a firewall, or hijack a surveillance drone, the visuals explode into these gorgeous layered projections. Bright blues, fiery reds, shifting grids, and spinning data streams. But it's not just eye candy. The VFX artists smartly tie these graphics into the characters' emotional states. When Max is panicked, the interfaces glitch, scramble, overload. When he's focused, the visuals smooth out, sharpening into precise, fluid motion. And let's talk practical effects versus digital. You can tell the filmmakers didn't rely solely on CGI. They mixed in practical elements wherever they could. Take the chase scenes through the narrow back alleys, you've got real stunt work, real explosions, real dust and debris flying through the air. Sure, the hover bikes zooming overhead are CGI, but the crumbling walls, the collapsing signs, the skidding cars? That's grounded, physical chaos, and it gives the digital moments a sense of weight and texture. The best scenes are the ones where practical and CGI effects dance together. A human hand brushing across a holographic lock, a real-world crash enhanced with digital sparks, a neon city street that feels both fantastical and grime-coated. Oh, and the creature and character design. Without spoiling too much, let's just say there are some figures in the story, cybernetic villains, semi-organic AI, augmented enforcers, that blur the line between human and machine. Here, the VFX work shines because it's not just about flashy surfaces. It's about making you believe. The CGI doesn't just slap on some glowing eyes or metallic limbs. It integrates into the body language, the textures, the subtle movements so these characters feel like living, breathing, or humming beings. And honestly, the VFX team shows restraint when they need to. Not every moment is overloaded with spectacle. Some of the most powerful visuals come from small, intimate touches. A flicker of malfunction in an implant, a faint distortion in a memory replay, a quiet ripple through a virtual interface. The effects here know when to go big, and when to pull back and let subtlety work its magic. Set design and locations. Alright, let's step into the world building of Retro 2025. Because this movie doesn't just give you a setting, it immerses you in a rich, lived-in universe where every corner feels like it's been worn by time, and every room tells a story of its own. From the very first scene, you get a sense of just how much attention to detail went into creating these environments, and it's like the set design is working overtime to make you believe in this future world. First off, let's talk about the city itself. A sprawling mess of old and new, a city that feels like it's been patched together with whatever tech people could salvage. You've got the gleaming, sterile glass towers where the rich and powerful reside, casting long shadows over the gritty, decaying streets below, where neon lights flicker on crumbling walls and the scent of old machinery lingers in the air. There's an obvious contrast between the sleek, shiny, and sterile upper world of the corporate elites and the darker, run-down underbelly where Max and his crew scrape by. And it's not just a backdrop. The locations are integral to the story. The towering structures are reminders of power, while the shadowy, cluttered districts reflect the desperation and rebellion of the characters. Each location feels earned, making the plot stakes feel grounded and real. The underground areas are a different beast entirely: dark, damp, industrial spaces where everything feels like it's just on the edge of falling apart. Think rusted pipes, flickering lights, abandoned warehouses with dust settling on unused machinery. These locations are key to understanding the world Max and Rin are trapped in. They're places of danger, hiding spots, places to be hunted, and places where secrets are buried. But here's the thing, they don't feel like generic dystopian sets. They feel like places that have history, places people actually live in. Then there's the personal spaces that give even more depth to the characters. Max's apartment, for example, isn't just a generic, sci-fi living space. It feels lived in. The cracked screens, the scattered piles of old tech, the battered furniture, they tell you everything about Max's mental state. The space is cramped, chaotic like his life, and it brings a touch of realism to this otherwise high-tech world. His world feels suffocating, cluttered, and lost in time. You know exactly what kind of person he is from the mess around him. It's all part of the narrative design. The props and tech are another incredible part of the set design. Every gadget, every screen, every piece of cybernetic tech is meticulously crafted to fit into the world's aesthetic. There's a grunginess to it all. The tablets and interfaces look worn like they've been around for decades. There's no glossy new tech here, just the remnants of a digital age that's long past its prime. And when it comes to the technology's functionality, the designs are both practical and stylish, like the cybernetic enhancements that Max and others use, or the clunky old machines that power the city's grid. These props feel like something that's been built over years, not just slapped together for the movie. But it's not just about the practical elements. The visual storytelling through the locations is phenomenal. Take the rooftop sequences where Max and Rin find themselves hiding from the authorities. The cityscape sprawls out before them, full of neon lights, hovering vehicles, and floating billboards that pulse with life. The skyline is almost poetic and you can feel the city breathing. These sweeping shots give you a sense of scale, of just how small and insignificant the characters feel in the face of such an overwhelming, cold, corporate-controlled city. The locations don't just add to the atmosphere, they reflect the characters' internal struggles and desires. One of the most impressive things about the set design is how it balances aesthetics with story. Every location in Retro 2025 isn't just there to look cool or futuristic, they serve the narrative. Whether it's the haunting abandoned alleyways Max has to run through or the sterile corporate floors he has to navigate, each location serves as a reflection of the character's journey, whether that journey is one of resistance, survival, or discovery. Dialogue and script. Okay, so let's talk about the words in Retro 2025. Because the script here is not just functional, it's packed with sharp, biting lines that hit harder than a high-voltage shock. This isn't a film where the dialogue is just moving the plot forward. Every line feels like it's there for a reason, either to push the characters' arcs, build tension, or throw you into a new emotional roller coaster. The way characters speak is as much a part of the world building as the neon-lit streets or the cybernetic implants. Take Max, for example. His dialogue is gritty and often sarcastic, reflecting a character who's been burned one too many times. But it's not all snark and cynicism. Beneath that hard exterior is someone struggling with loneliness, grief, and self-doubt. And the script knows how to balance those moments. You'll find yourself smiling at Max's dry wit one moment, then holding your breath the next when he lets slip a line full of unexpected vulnerability. It's those quiet revelations where the dialogue cuts the deepest. For instance, when Max talks about his father's legacy, the line isn't just about the loss. It's about the anger and the confusion of being left with fragments of a life that never quite added up. You feel his weight without the need for excessive exposition. Then there's Rin, whose dialogue is often the perfect foil to Max's world-weary cynicism. She's sharp, observant, and not afraid to call people out, but her lines also come with a hint of mystery, as if there's always more to her than she's letting on. It's her subtext that really makes her memorable. She'll say something casual, almost throwaway, but you can tell there's a deeper truth beneath it, like when she remarks on the price of trust in this chaotic world. It's a throwaway line in the middle of a tense scene, but it resonates with a quiet sadness that echoes long after the conversation ends. The script doesn't just settle for basic action movie exchanges either. No, there are some moments of sharp wit that make you sit up a little straighter. The banter between Max and Juno? Priceless. They're not just trading quips for the sake of it, they're testing each other, pushing boundaries, and testing their limits in a world that's anything but lighthearted. But the best moments are when that banter shifts into something deeper, something that hits right in the gut. And these moments don't feel forced, they feel like natural progression of the relationship, developing through snark and sarcasm before eventually getting to something real. Of course, this script doesn't shy away from emotional weight either. There are lines that land like a ton of bricks, lines that hit right at the heart of the story. The dialogue doesn't make you feel like you're being told what's at stake, it lets you feel it. One moment, you're caught in a conversation that seems lighthearted, then bam, a single line, maybe just a few words, and you're suddenly seeing the weight of a character's past, their pain, their desire for change. It's in those quiet moments that the script really earns its emotional power. The contrast between the harsh, gritty exchanges and the heartfelt, raw confessions makes you realize how much character is embedded in every word. And let's not forget the moments when the world building creeps into the dialogue itself. This isn't just about the plot moving forward. The way characters talk about the world they live in, the politics, the corporate control, the tech-dependent society, it adds layers of depth. The dialogue doesn't just exist in a bubble. It's constantly interacting with the world around the characters, giving you a real sense of the power dynamics at play. Every line about the system, or the grid, feels like a subtle protest, a jab at the control that's keeping everyone on a tight leash. But there's no denying it, there are some killer lines in this movie that you'll be quoting for days. Whether it's a witty comeback, a bitter realization, or a heartbreaking confession, the script knows exactly when to give you the perfect line to either leave you laughing or choking back a tear. The dialogue feels like it has real punch and doesn't hold back. It's unapologetic, raw, and sometimes cruel, but it's always memorable. Genre execution. Let's get into the genre of retro 2025, because this movie doesn't just follow the rules of its genre. It plays with them, bends them, and sometimes throws them right out the window. Now, on the surface you might think it's a straightforward sci-fi dystopian thriller. Futuristic tech, oppressive systems, rebels fighting the man. It's got all the ingredients, right? But here's the thing. The movie doesn't just settle for rehashing the same old tropes. Instead, it takes familiar conventions and twists them in fresh and unexpected ways. First up, the world building. Yes, this movie is set in a future dominated by corporate overlords and advanced technology, but it doesn't just show us the same bleak, gray cities with oppressive skies that we've seen in countless other films. Instead, the city in retro feels alive in a way that's almost uncomfortable. The streets are overcrowded, the lights are blinding, and the technology is everywhere, so much so that it almost feels like a living, breathing entity itself. You can almost hear the hum of the machines and feel the static in the air. It's a world where every corner is both a familiar dystopia and something new, and the film leans into that discomfort beautifully. The tech isn't just flashy, it's invasive, something that clings to your skin and gets under your nails. It's the kind of world that makes you want to look over your shoulder every time you step outside. That's not just your standard dystopian set design. It's a world that forces you to feel physically present in it. The movie subverts genre conventions when it comes to character archetypes, too. Take the protagonist, Max. Normally in a sci-fi thriller, you'd expect the hero to be some brooding, larger-than-life figure with a heart of gold and maybe some mysterious past. Not Max. He's the kind of guy who's rough around the edges, jaded, and just trying to get by in a world that's beaten him down. He's got flaws, lots of them, and instead of being this perfect hero on a mission, he's more like a reluctant survivor who stumbles through one crazy situation after another. His vulnerability is what makes him stand out in a genre that's typically packed with one-dimensional action heroes. He's real, and that makes him more relatable. Then there's the character of Rin, the sort of sidekick/partner in crime who at first seems like the typical cool, tech-savvy rebel. But the script flips this trope on its head, allowing Rin to grow into a fully realized character with her own agenda, her own secrets, and her own journey. Instead of just playing the part of the smartass hacker, she evolves in a way that feels earned and not forced. And this film doesn't just use action to move the story forward. It's got a lot more pacing nuance than you might expect. The action sequences, when they come, are often breathtaking and high stakes, but they don't dominate the entire film. Instead, the movie knows when to pull back and let things breathe, giving space for moments of character reflection or intimate dialogue. This balance gives you a chance to catch your breath while still keeping you on the edge of your seat. A lot of films in this genre are all about fast-paced chases and explosive showdowns, but Retro keeps the suspense building in these quieter moments, creating an emotional connection to the characters. So, when the big fight scenes do land, they feel like they matter. And speaking of balance, let's talk about humor. Yes, Retro has its moments of levity. These little quips and sarcastic lines between Max and Rin are like small breathers in an otherwise intense world. But the film doesn't lean on humor to lighten the mood too much. The humor is there, sure, but it's biting, often wrapped up in the characters' frustration with the world they're stuck in. It's dry, it's dark, and it hits harder because of the atmosphere that surrounds it. One thing this movie doesn't rely on? Clichés. This isn't some simple good versus evil narrative where the bad guys wear black hats and the heroes are destined for greatness. Instead, Retro gives us gray areas where everyone has their own reasons for doing what they do, and the line between hero and villain isn't so clearly drawn. The antagonists aren't these faceless corporate suits trying to crush the underdogs for no reason. There's a sense of justification behind their actions, however twisted it might be. And that makes the conflict feel so much richer and more layered. Of course, there are moments where the movie does lean on familiar tropes for comfort, like the rebellion against the all-powerful corporation or the hackers versus surveillance state narrative, but it reinvents them. The use of technology here isn't just a plot device. It's a character in itself, constantly evolving and forcing the characters to adapt. And when you think you've got the genre figured out, Retro throws in a twist that makes you rethink everything. The way the film interrogates the relationship between humanity and technology feels fresh, questioning how far you can push technology before it pushes back. It's a philosophical dive wrapped up in a genre that typically doesn't ask too many questions about its own world. Social and cultural commentary. Let's dive into the subtext of Retro 2025, because this isn't just a movie about tech and rebellion, it's got a whole lot to say about the world we live in right now. And trust me, the cultural and social commentary in this film isn't just tacked on for the sake of it, it's deeply woven into the fabric of the story. You know, those films where you sit back and realize that the more you think about it, the more the plot is holding up a mirror to society? Retro does that, and it does it cleverly. At the core of the film is the tension between humanity and technology, but not in the way you might expect. This isn't a straightforward, technology is bad narrative, where the film simply demonizes all things digital. Instead, it asks the tough questions. How far can we push tech before it starts to control us? When does progress become oppression? The movie's world feels familiar, almost too familiar, as it plays with the idea of corporate surveillance, big data, and the loss of personal privacy. And we're not talking about the future here. The film feels like a warning bell about the present, about how much of our lives are already being monitored and manipulated by corporations and governments alike. It's not just a dystopia, it's a reflection of where we could be heading if we aren't careful. Take the portrayal of the corporate giants in the film. They're not faceless, evil overlords, though let's be real, they're still pretty villainous, but rather organizations that have evolved into multidimensional powers. These are companies that operate with such seamlessness and such control over everything that they've become embedded in the very fabric of daily life. The film's critique of this corporate monopoly on not just resources, but also human behavior feels like a sharp jab at our current reality, where companies have more control over the public than governments. It's a commentary on the commodification of data, the corporatization of our personal lives, and how easily we've allowed our privacy to slip through the cracks. It's unsettling because it's so close to home. We see how these companies own the rights to our personal information and manipulate it for their gain, all under the guise of progress or innovation. And then there's the way the film handles inequality. The city in Retro isn't just a futuristic backdrop, it's a representation of the deep social stratification happening in the real world. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is painfully obvious. The wealthy and powerful live in their ivory towers, while those on the ground are scrambling for survival, crushed under the weight of a system designed to keep them in their place. This isn't just a setting, It's a biting critique of the economic divide in modern society, the way technology has become a tool for oppression rather than empowerment. The privileged class is depicted as living in gleaming skyscrapers, insulated from the gritty realities of life, while the masses struggle with overcrowded slums, constant surveillance, and a sense of hopelessness that hangs in the air. The film never forces this message on you, but it's there, lurking in the background, constantly reminding you of the social fractures that run deep in the world of retro. And let's talk about identity, because this movie isn't afraid to dive into that complex mess either. In a world so saturated by technology, what does it mean to be human? This is explored in a lot of subtle ways throughout the film, from characters' interactions with AI and cybernetic enhancements to the way they grapple with their own self-worth in a world that increasingly reduces individuals to data points. The film critiques the dehumanizing effects of technology, but it also brings up a deeply personal struggle that feels incredibly timely. How do we maintain our authenticity and sense of self when the world around us is pushing us to constantly adapt, upgrade, or conform? The movie doesn't just focus on the typical themes of corporate greed and rebellion either. It digs into personal responsibility and agency in a world that often seems like it's spiraling out of control. Max, for instance, isn't just fighting a faceless enemy. He's fighting against a system that feeds off his apathy. The film presents this moral dilemma where even the smallest act of resistance feels like it's not just a political statement but a personal choice that says something about who you are as a person. It's about finding meaning in a world that's trying to strip you of your identity. The questions around personal freedom are raised at every turn, and the stakes are personal. How much are we willing to lose before we stand up? And what happens when standing up feels like it's already too late? These aren't just questions for the characters in the movie, they're questions we all have to ask ourselves today. The film also doesn't shy away from handling power and corruption in a way that feels unnervingly close to what's happening in the real world. It's not just about the corrupt politicians or the shadowy corporations. It's about how institutions and those in power manipulate the public narrative. The power dynamics in retro aren't just about money or control over resources. They're about control over information, control over freedom, and the quiet oppression that happens when we're too numb to notice it. What's most impressive here is how naturally all these themes are woven into the narrative. Nothing feels heavy-handed or preachy, and the movie never lectures you on what's wrong with the world. Instead, it lets you experience these issues alongside the characters, making them feel real and pressing. Every line, every visual, every action feels like it's part of the conversation, and it adds a layer of complexity to the film that's rarely found in the genre. These aren't just issues to explore for the sake of drama, they're the very foundation of the world retro is built on. In essence, Retro 2025 isn't just a high-tech action-packed thriller, it's a mirror reflecting some of the most complex and sensitive issues we're facing today. From the tension between humanity and technology to the social inequality that plagues modern society, the movie's exploration of these topics is as thought-provoking as it is entertaining. It's a future we're already living in, and the film reminds us that how we deal with these issues now will determine how much of our future remains authentically human. Audience engagement. Now, let's talk about how Retro 2025 grabs you right by the emotions and keeps you on the edge of your seat. This isn't one of those films that you watch and forget about. No, this movie sticks with you long after the credits roll. In fact, it demands a reaction, whether it's a deep sigh of relief after a tense scene or wide-eyed shock at the unexpected twists. And that's the magic of retro. It doesn't just let you sit back and passively watch. It pulls you in, makes you care, and forces you to feel. Take the tension throughout the film. There are moments where you can literally feel the air shift, the kind of scenes that make you grab the armrest and hold your breath. It's not just because something explosive is about to happen. It's the anticipation that builds in these intimate moments of conflict. When Max and Rin are at odds or when they're facing impossible odds, you don't just see it as a story unfold, you're emotionally invested. You feel their anxiety, their frustration, and even their exhaustion from fighting a world that seems set up to destroy them. These are real, raw moments, and you can't help but think, what would I do in that situation? It makes you ask yourself all those hard questions about identity, survival, and what it means to fight for something that seems lost. Then there's the emotional payoff, and I'm not just talking about action-packed climaxes, though there are plenty of those. It's the quieter moments that really pull at your heartstrings. When Max experiences a personal loss or a significant turning point in his journey, you feel the weight of it. It's not just the circumstances that hit hard, but the emotional resonance that comes with it. And the way the film explores the human cost of all this technological advancement and social decay? It's a gut punch. It's like the movie isn't just playing out on the screen. it's forcing you to reckon with the reality of what it's depicting. It's that emotional truth that really lands. The film also uses its pacing in a way that makes every emotional high and low feel earned. It's not just about throwing a huge twist at you every 20 minutes. Retro knows when to slow down and allow the audience to reflect on the deeper themes. And that's where the movie hits home. It knows when to hit you with laughter, shock, or even a little nervous humor to break the tension, but it also doesn't shy away from diving into those gut-wrenching moments that leave you thinking about them long after the screen fades to black. Those quiet moments where the characters' emotional walls break. That's when the film resonates on a deep level. And let's not forget about shock factor. There are moments in the film that will make your jaw drop, not because of cheap thrills or forced twists, but because of how well the story builds to those moments. It's the kind of shock that comes with a deep sense of inevitability. You saw the pieces coming together, but you never expected the movie to actually take you there. And when it does, it's a punch straight to the gut that leaves you in stunned silence. This isn't about getting you with a plot twist for the sake of a twist. It's about shocking you with truths that feel real and unsettling. Then there's the sense of discovery. As the film unfolds, you're constantly learning more about this world, its characters, and the hidden layers beneath the surface. With each new reveal, the mystery pulls you in deeper. You're not just sitting back and watching. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, what secret is going to be uncovered, and where this journey is going to take you. And here's the fun part. Retro isn't just about getting to the end, it's about getting lost in the process of discovery. You want to know everything, and that curiosity is what keeps you emotionally engaged, driving you to ask more questions and dive deeper into its world. When you get to the climactic moments, it's not just the big action sequences that make your heart race, but the emotional stakes. It's when Max faces an impossible choice that you can't help but feel your heart in your throat. Will he make the right decision? Will he betray his own morals for survival? The choices feel real, and the weight of them feels like it's being placed on your shoulders as the viewer. The tension is so palpable you're nearly leaning into the screen, waiting to see how it will all shake out. And don't even get me started on the dialogue. Some of the lines in this film are so sharp, so witty, so memorable they'll stay with you for days. There's an underlying humanity to even the darkest moments in the film, and that's what makes it so emotionally engaging. It's not just about hitting the audience with drama, it's about making the audience feel like they're in the shoes of these characters. There's a grit, a realness, and a rawness to the emotions here that make it impossible not to feel something. Retro is a movie that isn't afraid to dig deep into the emotional core of its characters, and in doing so, it ensures that its audience is emotionally invested every step of the way. It makes you feel nervous, excited, sad, and sometimes even angry, but it always sticks with you. And the best part? The movie doesn't just leave you with emotions. It leaves you with questions. It's the kind of film you'll want to talk about with friends afterward, dissecting the twists, debating the choices, and coming back for repeat viewings to catch the nuances you missed the first time. You won't just remember the action. You'll remember the emotions that hit you at just the right moment. And that's what makes Retro one of those films that stays in your mind long after it's over. It's not just entertainment, it's an emotional experience. Comparisons to similar films. Let's take a step back and compare Retro 2025 to other films in its genre and beyond, because honestly, this film isn't just your average futuristic action flick. Sure, it has all the flashy cyberpunk elements and high-tech gadgets, but it also does something that's becoming increasingly rare in a world full of same blockbuster movies. It feels refreshing. If you were expecting another generic movie about tech dystopia and robots taking over, you'd be pleasantly surprised by what Retro brings to the table. In fact, when you compare it to other movies within this cyberpunk or tech-noir genre, Retro doesn't just ride the coattails of what's come before it, it pushes the envelope. Now, think about some of the classics that came before it: Blade Runner, 1982, Minority Report, 2002, and more recently films like Ex Machina, 2014, and Ghost in the Shell, 2017. These movies set the bar when it comes to blending high-concept tech with deep philosophical questions about humanity. Retro definitely fits into this lineage, but it doesn't just borrow from them. It builds on their foundation. If Blade Runner was about questioning what it means to be human, Retro takes that a step further and asks what it means to be authentically human in a world where your identity, your thoughts, and even your emotions are up for sale. The stakes are higher here, not just because of the technology, but because of the personal cost of living in a world where your very existence is commodified. Where Ex Machina explored the ethics of AI and the manipulation of machine consciousness, Retro flips the script and asks, what happens when we become the machines? The AI in Retro isn't just some shiny object or a futuristic novelty. It's a tool that is used by people to control others, making the human experience in this world feel less like an organic journey and more like a product. The human-tech relationship in retro is not just about enhancing abilities or creating synthetic intelligence. It's about the power dynamics between corporations, governments, and individuals. It's like Ex Machina, but the power is in the hands of the few who manipulate the masses. It's darker, grittier, and way more direct in its commentary. But let's talk about action, because in the world of futuristic films, it's not all just deep philosophical questions and intense drama. Some films take a more explosive route, and retro is no exception. But unlike Minority Report, which played with cool pre-crime tech and slick chase scenes, retro leans into a different kind of thrill. Sure, it's got its share of heart-pounding chases and action-packed sequences, but the beauty of retro lies in how it builds tension through character-driven moments. When the action happens, it feels earned and necessary, not just a cool moment to fill the runtime. The action here is personal, which makes it feel all the more impactful. The chase isn't just about escaping from a villain. It's about escaping from yourself, from a system that's been built to strip away everything human about you. That's what sets it apart from the usual cookie-cutter action thrillers. And now, let's get to the director's filmography, because if you've seen their previous work, you'll know that they have a knack for blending the complex and the personal in a way that makes audiences really connect with the story. This isn't their first foray into exploring humanity through tech, but what sets retro apart from, say, The Last Stand 2019, or Tomorrow's End 2022, is the level of depth they've brought to the table. In their earlier works, you had a sense of the world building, but here, the focus has shifted. Instead of just showcasing the mechanics of a futuristic world, the film makes emotionally charged moments the priority, with the tech serving as a means to heighten that human connection, or disconnect. This is new ground for the director, and they've clearly mastered it. If their previous films were about grand ideas, retro is about personal stakes. But where does retro truly stand when compared to other cyberpunk films in terms of style? Well, if you're familiar with the neon-lit streets, the sleek dystopian settings, and the moody atmosphere of a classic cyberpunk flick, retro delivers all that in spades. It pays homage to the style of Blade Runner with its high-contrast lighting, foggy landscapes, and urban sprawl. However, there's an interesting twist here. While some cyberpunk films seem locked into a retro-futuristic aesthetic, retro feels a bit more grounded. Sure, it has its share of futuristic tech, but it also incorporates more earthy, relatable environments. The grit of the world feels a little closer to what we experience today, which makes the dystopia all the more unnerving. It's not so much about showing off shiny technology as it is about showing the consequences of it on the everyday person. And how about the characters? In many tech-based movies, the protagonist often feels like a generic hero caught in a high-tech world. In retro, the characters aren't just vehicles for action. They're messy, complex, and filled with internal conflict that mirrors the film's broader themes. You can't just chalk them up to being simple archetypes. They've got history, they've got motivation, and they've got growth. In that sense, the film feels closer to The Matrix, 1999, where the characters' emotional journeys are just as important as the external conflict. But in retro, instead of trying to navigate the Matrix, they're navigating a world where nothing is real, but everything is manipulative. The stakes are personal and the choices feel weightier. So, when you stack retro up against other films in the cyberpunk or tech-noir genre, it's clear that it doesn't follow the well-worn path. Instead, it redefines some of the genre conventions. It's not just about exploring technology, it's about how that technology reshapes the emotional and moral fabric of society. It's about the personal cost of living in a world where tech isn't just a tool, but the means of control. And in doing so, retro brings something fresh, exciting, and just a little bit scary to the table. Not just for fans of the genre, but for anyone who's ready to question where our world might be heading. Symbolism and metaphors. In Retro 2025, there's a whole universe of hidden meaning and layered symbolism that you can dig into if you're up for the challenge. The film doesn't just give you a storyline, it gives you a riddle filled with visual clues, metaphors, and motifs that build its world in ways that go far beyond what's immediately visible. If you want to experience the movie on a deeper level, you'll need to pay attention to more than just the plot. It's the small things, the fleeting images, and the recurring symbols that tell you just as much about the world the film is trying to create. Let's start with the central metaphor that lies at the heart of the entire film: the mirror. It's not just a literal reflection. The mirror symbolizes the idea of self in a world where identity is constantly shifting and can be manipulated. The character's relationship with mirrors is essential because, in this universe, what you see isn't always what's real. Think of the main protagonist's struggle with their identity. Every time they look into a mirror, they don't just see themselves, they see a distorted version of who they are. This ties into the film's broader theme. Who are we when our reality can be altered at will? Mirrors are constantly reappearing throughout the movie, but each time they serve a different purpose, revealing more about the inner conflict between what's genuine and what's constructed. Now, if we're talking about recurring motifs, the color red definitely pops up as a key visual cue. Whether it's the flashing neon lights of the city or a key piece of clothing, red in retro isn't just a color. It's a visual cue that points to danger, but also to power and passion. The contrast of red against the film's often cold, blue-tone palette creates this interesting tension between life and death, between rebellion and order. It's as if the color is signaling when something is about to change, when the characters are going to break out of the cycle of predictability. It's that visceral reminder that the characters can't stay in their safe space forever. Something's going to pop, and when it does, the consequences are red hot. Speaking of power, there's another motif that's less obvious but extremely impactful: the clock. Time itself becomes a metaphor for control. It's never just a passing backdrop. From the repetitive ticking sounds to the constantly visible clocks on screens or walls, time plays a crucial role in reminding the audience of the ticking bomb nature of this world. The characters, like the technology surrounding them, are stuck in a cycle of moving towards something they can't control. The clock is the film's reminder that everything is running out: time, resources, trust, even hope. This isn't a film where time flows freely, it's a world where time controls. So every glance at the clock is a moment of dread, like watching a countdown to an inevitable moment of crisis. Then there's the cybernetic eye, a recurring visual throughout the film. The character's reliance on artificial enhancements to see the world or even to perceive reality itself becomes a kind of metaphor for society's over-reliance on technology. When characters gaze through their augmented lenses, they're not just seeing the world, they're seeing a filtered reality, a version of things that's been manipulated and altered. The eye becomes more than just a piece of technology, it's a symbol of loss of agency, a visual cue of how technology has taken over personal perception. The more the eye appears, the more we realize that these characters aren't seeing the truth, they're seeing a version of it. Truth in retro isn't something we can just access. It's something we have to fight for, something we may never fully see. In fact, technology itself serves as a metaphor for control throughout the film. The idea that you can hack your own identity or memories is a clear commentary on how society today is obsessed with manipulating its own image, be it through social media, digital avatars, or cosmetic surgeries. There's a constant tension between the authentic self and the constructed self, and technology becomes the tool that makes the line between the two increasingly blurred. The film's use of tech isn't just about cool gadgets or futuristic ideas, it's about a society where people lose themselves in the process of trying to control how they're seen. And then let's talk about the city itself. The sprawling metropolis in retro feels more like a living entity than just a backdrop. It's this vast, oppressive thing, constantly swallowing up the characters and reminding them of their place in the machine. The towering, glistening skyscrapers seem to reflect the idea that corporate and governmental control is as much a part of the landscape as the buildings themselves. In fact, the buildings almost loom over the characters, a subtle visual metaphor for the feeling of being trapped under a system that's much bigger and more powerful than any individual. But interestingly, this same city also provides moments of escape, especially in the lower levels, areas where the bright lights fade and true rebellion begins to take shape. There's a cyclical nature to the way the story unfolds, and that's reflected in the repeated visuals. The same motifs come back over and over, not as something to ignore but as something to pay attention to. The use of repetition in retro isn't just for stylistic flair, it's a narrative tool. It mimics the cycle of control that the characters are constantly stuck in. Whether it's a recurring sound, a recurring image, or a recurring location, these repeated elements remind us that the characters are not only trying to escape a physical world but also a mental and emotional trap they've built for themselves. The repeating images and motifs force the audience to reflect on the idea that everything is connected, and that breaking free from one layer means confronting everything else. In conclusion, Retro 2025 is a film packed with rich symbolism, and the more you watch, the more you'll start to notice the intricate metaphors lurking behind every frame. From the mirror reflecting distorted truths to the cybernetic eyes that show us a world filtered through tech, the film is bursting with ideas about identity, control, and perception. These symbols aren't just for decoration, they're the key to unlocking the deeper themes of the movie, making it a film that's not just visually compelling but thematically rich and thought-provoking. Each symbol, each metaphor, adds another layer to a world that's both haunting and familiar, challenging us to look beyond the surface and question how much of what we see is truly real. Franchise or historical context. Let's take a minute to dive into the historical and franchise context of Retro 2025, and why this movie doesn't just stand on its own but plays a crucial role in the larger fabric of its universe. Whether you're a longtime fan of the series or a newcomer, Retro manages to create its own space while still respecting what came before. If you've followed the franchise from the very beginning, there's a sense of continuity that flows through every frame, every twist, and every character moment. For those who've been with the Retro universe from the start, you'll immediately notice how this installment picks up on threads from the previous films. There's this sense of growth and evolution within the world. The technology has advanced, the characters have changed, and society has, for better or worse, become more integrated with the artificial intelligence and cybernetic augmentations we saw beginning to develop in earlier movies. The movie doesn't just follow the path of its predecessors. It builds on them, expands them, and in some cases takes bold risks with the lore. But here's where things get particularly exciting. Retro 2025 doesn't just follow the beaten path. It starts adding new layers to the existing universe, introducing new factions, new powers at play, and new conflicts that were hinted at but never fully explored in earlier films. The narrative choices don't feel like they're just spinning in place, recycling familiar concepts. They push the boundaries of the universe and expand the stakes in ways that'll have you thinking, okay, what happens next? Now, if we look at Retro from a historical film perspective, the picture becomes even more complex and intriguing. While this movie isn't necessarily a historical film in the traditional sense, it does incorporate elements of historical speculation. The film plays with the idea of a future where technology has fundamentally changed society's fabric and questions the direction of human progress. But it's not some distant utopia or dystopia. Instead, Retro feels very much like a reflection of our current moment, giving a sense of foreboding familiarity to the world it's depicting. The film doesn't claim to be a perfect representation of what the future holds. That would be too simplistic. Instead, it invites you into a world that feels grounded in real-world technology and cultural shifts that we are already seeing today. It asks, what happens when technology advances faster than our ability to control it? What happens when society becomes too dependent on its innovations? The filmmakers have done a great job creating a world that feels both immersive and believable while making it clear that this is still speculative fiction. It's a future that's rooted in our own time, and that's what makes it so impactful. The film also takes its historical themes seriously, exploring how technological advancements might shape not just individuals but entire societies. This isn't just about robots and gadgets. It's about how power, inequality, and personal freedom might evolve as we continue to live in a world where technology doesn't just surround us, it defines us. The story is grounded in this idea that history is written by the forces of technology, and when one entity controls those forces, it controls the narrative of how we progress. You'll find moments in Retro 2025 that echo past historical events, even though they're presented in the form of a future speculative world. For fans of the franchise, you'll recognize the subtle nods to past films and how the story's unfolding parallels the evolution of technology in our own world. It's almost like watching a historical progression of this imagined future. The earlier films set the foundation, and now this one digs deeper into the consequences of the changes that have already occurred. It feels like the movie is not just moving forward in time, but also looking back at the events that shaped this future society. The result is that Retro not only provides thrilling entertainment, but it also offers a meaningful commentary on the trajectory of human and technological evolution. On the flip side, if you haven't seen the previous films in the series, don't worry. Retro 2025 stands strong on its own. While there are definitely moments that reward fans of the series with familiar themes and returning characters, the film does a good job introducing new viewers to the world without bogging them down with too much backstory. It's accessible while also offering deeper layers for those who are already invested in the ongoing saga. Whether you're a newcomer or a seasoned fan, you're invited into a world where the past and future collide, and what you choose to make of it is part of the fun. In essence, Retro 2025 is both an evolution of the franchise and a reflection on the historical implications of technology. It's a film that looks to the future while still carrying the weight of the past with it. And in doing so, it creates a world that feels real, layered, and fascinating. So, whether you're a diehard fan or someone just tuning in, you'll find yourself thinking about the implications of this world and what it means for our future, long after the credits roll. Budget and box office. Let's get into the numbers. When it comes to Retro 2025, the film's budget tells you a lot about the scale of ambition behind it. You can definitely see where the money went, from the spectacular visual effects to the highly detailed set designs and those slick, futuristic costumes. But that's not all. This is a film that needed to balance its cutting-edge technology with the gritty realism of its world, and that comes with a hefty price tag. The budget for Retro 2025 is reported to be somewhere in the $150 million range, which is no small feat for a sci-fi thriller. And you know what? For the most part, the film delivers on that investment. The money's definitely on screen. The production values are top-notch, and the futuristic world they've built looks like it's straight out of a high-end concept design studio. The use of CGI, combined with practical effects, creates a sense of immersion that's hard to shake. And if you're looking for those breathtaking visual moments, the film has plenty. Neon-lit streets, towering skyscrapers, and futuristic tech gadgets. All these elements scream that Retro wasn't trying to cut corners. The production design team definitely went for the big wow factor, and it shows in every frame. But of course, a film's budget isn't just about how good it looks, it's about financial success, and that's where things get interesting. Box office numbers are always a tricky subject, and Retro 2025 faced a few challenges when it came to pulling in audiences. While it certainly made waves with its release, the film didn't exactly hit the record-breaking figures that some expected. After its theatrical run, the box office gross hovered around the $250 million mark, which isn't bad by any means, but it still left a lot of industry watchers wondering if it could have made more, especially with that hefty budget. So what happened? Well, a couple of factors come into play here. First off, Retro 2025 is a film that appeals to a niche audience. Those who love high-concept sci-fi with a dash of dystopia, tech, and the exploration of human identity. This isn't your run-of-the-mill blockbuster. It's a bit weirder, a little more thought-provoking. While that made it a cult favorite for certain viewers, it didn't quite have the broad appeal that would drive massive numbers of general moviegoers to the theater. Sci-fi fans loved it, sure, but the casual viewer? Not so much. Marketing played a huge role in whether or not the film could pull in a wider audience, and here's where things get really fascinating. Retro 2025 had a pretty decent marketing campaign, but the real buzz didn't really hit until word of mouth started spreading. You know how it goes? Someone watches it, thinks it's the coolest thing they've ever seen, and then all of a sudden there's a snowball effect. The viral hype did help, but it was a bit of a slow burn rather than an instant hit. It wasn't one of those movies where the trailer alone made you want to run to the theater. No, this was a movie that slowly built up its audience as people talked about it in forums, on social media, and in discussions. That kind of marketing can work, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You get a lot of passionate fans, but not necessarily the mass crowd needed to push the box office numbers into the stratosphere. While it didn't break records, the film did make enough money to be considered a financial success, though some might argue that it could have done better given the level of hype and the stunning visual effects that would have otherwise attracted a larger audience. But let's talk about streaming and digital releases, because that's where the real story gets interesting. After its theater run, Retro 2025 saw a surge in popularity on streaming platforms, and that's where its success story really found traction. The global appeal of streaming meant that it found an audience beyond the domestic box office, picking up viewers from all over the world. It was one of those films that did well on demand, especially for people who wanted to revisit the visually stunning scenes or dive deeper into its complex narrative. In the grand scheme of things, the film definitely recouped its costs, and even though it didn't land among the top earners of the year, its cultural footprint grew substantially. People didn't forget about Retro 2025, and it kept popping up in discussions, think pieces, and video essays across the web. So even though it wasn't a massive box office blockbuster, its influence in the long term might be bigger than the initial numbers suggest. This is one of those films that may not have been a smash hit at the time of release, but over the years, it could very well find itself cemented as a cult classic. Ultimately, the film's budget and box office performance are a reminder that a movie's success isn't always defined by its opening weekend. Sometimes, it's about how the film grows over time, how it lingers in the cultural conversation, and how it creates lasting appeal in the years that follow. In the case of Retro 2025, it might not have been the biggest box office smash, but its longevity and impact in the sci-fi community are undeniable. So, if you didn't catch it in theaters, don't worry, this is a film that will keep coming back, making its mark again and again as more people discover it. Where to watch? So you're ready to dive into Retro 2025, right? You've heard the buzz, you're intrigued, and now you're wondering, where can you actually experience this mind-bending, visually stunning film? Well, I've got you covered. Let's talk about the best places to catch Retro 2025, whether you're a theater goer, a streaming fanatic, or someone who loves the convenience of a digital rental. First up, the theater experience. Let's not forget the big screen. If you've got a nearby IMAX or premium theater that offers Dolby Atmos sound and those ultra-crisp screens, Retro 2025 is a movie that deserves that full cinematic treatment. The film's visually rich world, with all those neon-drenched streets and futuristic designs, is something you'll want to immerse yourself in, and there's just something about seeing those intense action sequences on a massive screen with surround sound that makes the experience pop. If you're lucky enough to catch it in a premium format, do it. The sound design, the sweeping camera angles, the eye-popping CGI, it all comes alive in a way that's hard to replicate at home. Plus, watching it with a live audience, there's a certain energy that comes from being in a packed theater, reacting to the same jaw-dropping moments. Now, if you're a little more on the home viewing side, you'll be pleased to know that Retro 2025 is available for streaming on several major platforms. You won't have to leave the comfort of your couch to get your fix of futuristic thrills. Think Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and Hulu. Those are just a few of the big names that have this film available for on-demand streaming. The beauty of streaming is that you can pause, rewind, and really take your time to appreciate the stunning world building and intricate details of the film. Plus, streaming allows you to watch it at your own pace so you can savor the scenes or go back for that jaw-dropping visual that caught your eye. But what about digital rentals? If you're not looking for a subscription service, no worries. You can grab Retro 2025 on a digital rental platform like Google Play, Apple TV, or Vudu. These options give you the freedom to pay per view, perfect if you're just looking to dip your toes into the film without committing to a long-term subscription. Rentals typically give you 48 hours to watch, so if you're someone who likes to get cozy on the couch, it's a perfect option for a weekend binge. Now here's a fun little pro tip. Watch it with the lights off. Yes, I'm serious. Retro 2025 has this amazing atmosphere that can only be fully appreciated when the room is dark, and you're surrounded by nothing but the movie's sounds and visuals. Turn off the distractions, and let the film transport you into its tech-filled, dystopian world. Whether you're seeing it on a massive screen or your 4K TV at home, that extra level of immersion really makes a difference in how you experience the film. And if you've got a home theater setup, even better. Crank up the volume and let that futuristic soundtrack wash over you as you dive into this sci-fi masterpiece. For those of you who just can't get enough, there are also a number of special edition releases that might pop up in the future. These could include exclusive behind-the-scenes content, commentary tracks, and additional features that will take your understanding of Retro 2025 to the next level. It's always a treat for die-hard fans to get their hands on that kind of bonus material, especially if you're into director's notes or seeing how those stunning visual effects were crafted. In short, whether you're heading to the theater for that giant screen spectacle, binge-watching from the comfort of your home, or renting it for a one-time viewing, there are plenty of ways to watch Retro 2025. Each method has its perks, but whatever you choose, make sure you give yourself enough time to fully dive into the world the filmmakers have created. Trust me, it's one of those films that'll have you coming back for multiple views. Every watch reveals something new, whether it's a detail in the background or a deeper layer to the storyline.